on, and my role is focusing on more acquisition-related websites within our company, as well as the mothership, kaiserpermanente.org. We have thousands of different microsites out there. We really don't have the manpower to address it, so we're just really addressing the acquisition sites as well as the main mothership. So we've only been doing this about 2 years, and I'll get into the what's working, what's not working, but that's me.
Thanks, John. Jonathan?
My name is Jonathan Renteria. I just recently worked at Saatchi & Saatchi. It's an ad agency. It was agency of record for one of the largest OEMs, Toyota. I worked there for 3.5 years. Before that, I worked for the Nissan Infiniti national business as well. I just recently moved over to Kelley Blue Book as a digital marketing manager. All my time in the space has been about either search, social, or SEO. And I think the biggest emphasis and biggest priority I had that kind of evolved throughout the years is building discovery strategies, not necessarily focused on websites, but information and how to build impact with different types of information.
Thanks. Adam?
Hi, everyone. My name is Adam Petrowski. I am at Demand Media, where I'm the Senior Director of SEO and Inbound Marketing. So basically all search and social and anything that is about growing our audience, and that is my main responsibility. Biggest focus is obviously getting people through the door, but the biggest part of that is getting them coming back, and really it's about building community and building growth and helping grow all our brands at Demand.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Andrew Taylor. I'm a Senior Search Marketing Manager at Citrix. Citrix is a big company and does a lot of different things. Primarily, we're a tech company, cloud infrastructure. The specific division I work for has brands like GoToMeeting, GoToMyPC, GoToAssist in our portfolio. One of the main objectives that we're trying to do out there in the world is allowing people to easily work from anywhere, from any device. So that's part of what the main picture is for me. I'm specifically focused though on the search marketing portion of the business. I've been in the industry for some time now. For a number of years, I was on the ad agency side of things, and just within the last two to 3 years, I've switched over to the in-house side, corporate side. So I've been on both sides of the fence and have some experience there. Happy to be here.
Andrew, thank you. Since you're you've already, I think you're in the flow. Why don't we start with you? We'll start on that end and move this way on this first question. So, what's working for you with SEO? And maybe if you don't mind, maybe we can even just tell people a little bit about how SEO is just a little bit different today than it was maybe just a few years ago.
Yeah, great question. So maybe I'll take the last part of that question first.
Okay.
Flip it around. I think that one thing that's interesting about SEO is I think that at its essence, it's always been part of it's been connecting with people, right? Trying to find ways that connect with people. And I think that when SEO strategists, SEO people get off track is when they start forgetting about the customer. They start writing content, creating content, developing content for search engine algorithms rather than the customer. And I think that's one thing that's actually always been true. But with some of the recent algorithm updates over the last few years, it's forcing people to do it whether they want to or not. So one thing that I'm actually proud to see as these search engines mature is having a greater focus on the user, because that's what it's all about.
And so, is there anything maybe specific that's really worked for you as an organization? Something that like a tactical tip?
Yeah. One thing that's top of mind for me is authorship. Search engines are doing a lot to reward authors and making sure they get credit for the content that they write. So, one thing that we're thinking a lot about is trying to not only digitally connect those authors back to their social profiles, give them credit for the content that they're writing, but kind of get that idea out there in our circles to say, hey, if you write on our blogs, if you write on our website, one of the things that we're going to do, or part of the compensation, is making sure that authorship is pointed back to you. So that's one of the things that's top
Great.
of mind that we're thinking about.
All right, thank you. Adam.
Yeah, I will. I might actually kind of change a little bit that first question of how it's changed over the years, and maybe argue that I don't think it has changed.
Great.
Because I think if you're doing what you should be doing, at the end of the day, it's the same concept. It really is. It's the same way marketing has been for 30 years. You know, you got to start with a good product. Whether your product is an article or something you're selling or a tool or an app, you have to have something. Yeah, that has to be the foundation of it, right? The first question I always get from companies I start, that whether I've been in-house or on the agency side, is why am I not outranking my competitor? And my first question is, well, do you deserve to outrank your competitor? Is your product better than them, right? And that doesn't mean you have to have the best product in the industry to rank number one, but if you're not competitive up there, then I think you're kind of kidding yourself if you think you deserve to be up there, right? That doesn't mean there's not a lot of fundamental tech things that you have to do and cross your T's and dot your I's from an architecture standpoint for SEO, but it's got to start with that foundation. I think it's coming more back to that, because there were the early days you could get by with not having a great product because there were enough tricks you could do, and I love that it's going away from that, because I think at the end of the day we all want to be proud of what we're marketing or what we're promoting, right? Yes, it can be satisfying if you figure out some little trick and you get up there, but at the end of the day, we all want to be creating something that is in some way helping a business or helping some, for me, one of the sites I spend most of my time working on is livestrong.com, and building tools or
Sorry,
apps
can you repeat that? What was
livestrong.com. Not to be confused with livestrong.org, but we are a partner. But building apps and tools that help people live longer lives, and seeing these stories coming in of people like, hey, we have somebody that was on the cover of People magazine this year because she lost half her body weight using our tool, right? Like, that's awesome to be a part of, right? So I think that would be the first part of that, and I would go into that with what's working. That's what's working. It's providing real value, right?
So let's just take, we can actually take, you're now Kelly Blue Book, Jonathan. So Kelly Blue Book, obviously probably your competitors, Edmunds, right?
Right.
So there are certain things, though, that I guess Kelly Blue Book might be able to do, right? To have it rank higher than Edmunds for Honda Civic Review or value of my car.
Right.
Maybe let's take your answer and maybe we can move on, and maybe you can address some of the things that maybe you guys can do to help sort of when there's two products that are, or two companies or 3 or 4 products that are kind of in the same space. How do we inch above them?
Yeah, I mean, well, I have a little bit more experience with the Toyota account.
Go ahead.
I think ranking is definitely important, and I think that's one of the things that is seen as the KPI when doing SEO strategies. But I think one of the things that we've been trying to somewhat enforce with Toyota is that it's not about the website, it's not about pages, it's not about site architecture anymore, even though there's huge emphasis on it and it's important, but it's about interpreting the site user flow in other content, in other content formats that could speak to the same information. So, like, just as an example, automotive, there's a certain shopping process, upper funnel, middle funnel, lower funnel. And usually a site is designed in order to attack those, or at least speak to those different parts of the funnel. And our whole thing is that, the future of search is becoming more of this discovery engine that's not necessarily a directory to a website, but it's actually an experience where people could actually search, get information, consume information, engage with content, and then do another search. So taking that approach, how can you look at your website and user flow and then interpret it into other content formats that doesn't necessarily need a page? So usually in a website, you have either tools, functions, but most importantly, content, whether videos, images, or editorial, like reviews. So how can you take those different parts of the website or the page design and still tell the same story, but only within those content formats, only within the video, or only within the image, or only within editorial? Because that's one of the things that's happening with search, is that The emphasis is to engage with the consumer and actually satisfy the consumer within that first touch point. So, one trend that has been going industry-wide is less traffic to websites year over year. So one of some of the insights for that is that that person's interest or question for the website was already answered elsewhere. So if that question is being answered elsewhere, one, can you integrate yourself with that other environment by building a video so that website could share it? Like, let's say for Toyota and KBB, if that answer is being answered on KBB instead of Toyota, obviously Toyota still wants to be involved in that question or that experience. You can't house a website within KBB, so how can you still interpret your story or tell your story through an image, a video, or editorial? So I think just going back, it's just what's working is this emphasis on information through content types rather than emphasizing the site and emphasizing the website and emphasizing pages.
Yeah, I really like those comments. One of the things that we're talking about a little bit in my company is are the things that we're doing, are they better than the next best alternative? So we all know that to succeed in search, you have to have content. But is that content better than the next best alternative? In other words, when I go to your website, is it better than me just picking up a book? Is it better than me going for a walk? Is it better than doing a lot of other things that are available to me every day, right? So it's not just, is my content better than my competitor? Is my content better than the next best alternative? So that's something to think about too.
That's interesting. So John, maybe talk about what works for you and maybe address some of these things that the other panelists have talked about.
From my perspective, Kaiser's just been tipping their toes into SEO, and we're a huge company, so it might not be as applicable to maybe some of the smaller businesses that are here, but we look at it from a strategic perspective as website optimization. So everything that my fellow colleagues and panelists have said is accurate, but it's not just SEO. It's your video, it's your social, it's your paid search. Our goal from Kaiser's perspective is to got to be like Red Bull. Do a search on Red Bull. I guarantee you the very first page is all going to be Red Bull. It's going to be the social, it's going to be their local information, it's going to be their events. Our goal is when we grow up, we want to be like Red Bull. I mean, they just dominate that homepage. And if you know anything about the search analytics, 75% don't get past that first page. So if you're not on that first page, you're not going to get the people going to your site. All the other things about content, absolutely true. We've got so much content on our mothership, kaiserpermanente.org, but we have a very fractured system we're trying to consolidate. Our ecosystem is fractured. We're trying to understand and pull things together. So from what's working perspective, the blocking and tackling of architecture is important. I mean, it really is truly, it goes,
Can you give like a really good specific example of architecture?
Page title, okay? What's your page title when you come to your homepage? What does it say? Does it say Red Bull, whatever event? That's the first thing they see. What's your H1 tag, okay? Also, what's your meta description?
Let's quickly, just so, does H1 tag, you want to tell people?
H1 is your first headline on your page.
Yep, that big tagline that you see on your website.
Yeah, it's the H1. H2 is your second headline. H3 is your third headline. So those basic block, your URL, obviously the name of your URL, how friendly it is. Do you have some type of keywords in it? Now we're reading, in some of the new stuff that maybe keywords aren't as important in your URL. It's not to say, like we said, that it might not be bad, but might also be not as good. So. There are so many things. There's over 200 to 500 algorithm changes to Google's algorithm a month. So it's really difficult to kind of stay on top of this stuff. And the recent Hummingbird algorithm change is going to what Andrew said, is about being more about what are people searching for. It goes back to Siri. When you do a query on your Siri now, people are just, where is the best place for barbecue in North Carolina, North Shore, or whatever. It's able now to understand from a semantic standpoint, getting there, what is really the essence of the Q. So, for example, here's a question: how many movies was Leonardo DiCaprio in? So instead of coming down with a list of all the movies, it's going to actually, or things that are Leonardo DiCaprio related, it's going to actually try to be more specific. Because again, it's trying to be smarter about the search. So again,
Yeah.
my role is a little bit more strategic, but I know the basic blocking and tackling stuff is so important, at least from our perspective, of really what's working. We're seeing it in our results.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Go
that's
ahead.
great, John. I find it interesting you're using the Red Bull example because I love that example. It's a company that basically sells some water, sugar, and probably some other chemicals in a can that's probably not that great for you, but they really do it well, and they've done their marketing so well that they've actually have a separate division called Red Bull Media House. That they're doing all of these things that connect with their customers, and one of the things I recently saw on their site is you can actually pay to license some of their content. So that should be a litmus test too for all of us. Is our content so good that people would actually pay to use it? I'm not saying that many of us don't have the money to send a guy up into space and then drop him out of space, right? I wish I did. I mean, I wish I could have put the Citrix logo on that guy before he jumped. But
maybe from an SEO standpoint, can
Yeah.
we maybe actually take an example like that, like something that gets a lot of buzz, and explain why something like that actually works, not just from a PR standpoint, but from just an SEO standpoint?
yeah,
Maybe we can just work down.
Sure.
I think that's a good example.
Yeah, I think that maybe to take a spin on that, I think one of the things that's really important for all of us to understand as search marketing continues to evolve and change is we all know about the social signals of search, right? I hope everybody knows that what's happening in the social world is highly correlated to how you're going to perform in search engines. So, some of the things that I've really seen work lately are, first of all, focusing on the customer first, trying to write for the user, write for the customer, but also making it very easy to share, very easy to like, very, very easy to consume. And I think that if you can get that balance right, you'll really start to succeed. So, the Red Bull's one example. I've seen a lot of other great examples out there. Continuing with beverage companies, Coca-Cola does an amazing job with a lot of their web properties, getting people engaged and allowing them to start to interact and share that content very, very effectively and efficiently.
Adam, do you want to maybe touch on that a little bit? I know we're still on the what's working, but I feel like we're hitting both questions of what's not in this, and I like this. I like the way this is going. So maybe talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's giving a more creative, original spin on the stuff you're trying to present to.
But I guess I want to know, what does getting press and getting buzz?
It does, and
how does that
that's
work?
kind of what
Yeah.
I was going towards. I mean, Toyota. A good Toyota example is the what was it, the Swagger wagon video on YouTube. If you saw that, I mean, like how many? I mean, that was just cool. And
that was
the
about
amount of
minivans.
about minivans, yeah, and the amount of shares and buzz and like never in my life would I have ever thought I would share anything that had to do with a minivan, right? But it was phenomenal. I watched that thing a ton of times. Old Spice, another great example, right? Just going a little bit beyond, and that's obviously there were agencies and a lot of money behind those kind of things. A great example, there was the Children's Hospital of Seattle did this video with it was essentially just going through and children's cancer patients in the hospital lip singing to Kelly Clarkson's Stronger, and it got millions and millions of views, and they raised a lot of money from that video, right? And that's just telling your story, So it really comes down to that. We're talking a lot about content here, and I know John mentioned the blocking and tackling. I think we can't forget that it's very important. Like
That's what I was gonna.
It's very important to make sure you do have your site architecture and your technical stuff down, because while
On that note, let me jump to the third question.
Okay.
Are there any tools that people can use to figure out whether or not their site is structured properly?
Was it Scrum Frog, I think is
Screaming
one?
Frog, Screaming
that's
Frog
a-
is one.
Yeah.
I mean, Google Webmaster Tools and Google Analytics are your best friends. If you're not set up on those from the get-go, you're setting yourself up for a lot of pain and heartache, and really not knowing what's going on. So that's key.
What do you guys look at on Webmaster Tools? What's a good metric
A
for everybody here
Webmaster
to look
Tools,
at?
you should be looking at your
Crawl-
errors
Crawl errors, yeah.
every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a big one. They're
Jonathan, you wanna-
getting better about sending you messages about that too, but you got to be looking at that.
Do you have any metrics that people should be looking at for using some of these SEO tools?
Yeah, I think they're probably better to kind of speak to it.
Okay.
I think again, going to the beginning, it was always about how to tell a story outside of your website. So not necessarily emphasizing the traffic, but just overall impressions of the content. So if you have a video, how many views does it get? How many images? The same thing. So in terms of tools, we focused on tools or data that could help build out the right content. And usually content has to satisfy a lot of different things. And
Does
yeah.
content have to be unique?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah,
Do
definitely.
you guys? So that's I think an important piece is that, right? I mean, when you're creating content for your site, it needs to be really special for your site.
Right. And I think once you're building out content, you have to have data sources that speaks to different elements of the search algorithm. And the search algorithm or social algorithm is there to figure out someone's intent. And usually when you're trying to satisfy someone's intent, you have to gather other pieces. So what were their interests? What was the location? The recency of their interests. And as long as you have all those data sets together and you're able to build out this picture of this content, then the better chance you're able to satisfy the person's intent, and the better chance you have in enhancing your SEO strategy or scores or traffic.
John, you want to jump in, please?
Just from an acquisition perspective, because I think that's what we're all trying to do is figure out how many leads we can get, how many more customers, members, whatever the term or conversion event is doing keyword research. All right, that's number one. Google has now got a new tool, Keyword Planner, that you go out there and you have to know how many people are searching on whatever content it might be. And that's the struggle that we're having. Talk about what's working, what's not working. We're working with a line of business that wants to do certain things and wants to phrase it in such a way. And we're trying to, from my perspective, and as well as working with the agency, to try to educate them that no one's searching on those keywords. Even though we want to change the conversation, you're not going to rank, you're not going to get visible if no one's searching on it. So
You'll rank really well for the 10 people that do search.
yeah, exactly.
Can you give
Within
us
your own
an
office
example
IP
of that? I
address.
think that's a really good point.
Well, again, without trying to give away any kind of
Without
company secrets, it's just a line of business. It's just, again, we have multiple lines of business: Medicare, individual and family, business to business, large group, small group, federal. So again, I'm working with all these different lines of business, and we work with an agency who helps kind of do the traffic cop. Because at the end of the day, again, I work for Kaiser. If you're a Kaiser member or a Kaiser prospect, or you're just kicking the tires on Obamacare, everybody's going to use the term health insurance. Well, that's a pretty high traffic thing. And so not everybody's going to. So how can you phrase it in such a way, Kaiser Permanente health insurance, or are you looking for health insurance? I mean, something along those lines. That's how you craft and get your keywords into the algorithm.
And I think just one note: when you're looking at the top keywords by traffic or by impressions, one thing that does happen is you get lost in keywords without not knowing the relationship of that keyword with the other keyword. Mm-hmm. Because if you get the top 10 keywords, you literally might be choosing one question to answer in terms of intent. Like maybe all those keywords are related, and you're building out content for each keyword, but probably the better choice is build out content for one keyword because it's associated with other keywords. Mm-hmm. So going back with other data sources, keywords are good lens to what people are interested in. But connecting the two keywords, you're looking at location. Like if the two keywords are being searched in the same location, that could give you more context behind that relationship with the two keywords. The recency of the two keywords being searched together, the social context of those keywords. Are they being talked about in the same? So let's say.
Do you use Keyword Planner for this research?
No.
What-
We use, I used Keyword Planner to figure out the interest. But in figuring out the relationship of those keywords, we use a lot of different tools that would, speak to the location of terms, the conversation of those two terms. Let's say if it's horsepower and torque. They might not be related, but they could be related. So maybe looking at social listening tools and saying that there were a lot of conversations that both use the two keywords together, then you can figure out that they're related to each other. So now you could build out like experience or content or landing page that speaks to both instead of building one landing page for one key term and another for another key term. So it's not getting lost in just having the top 10 keywords and building content that way, but trying to figure out what the relationship of those keywords are with each other.
And just to, with regards to a tool, I don't know if it's a tool or more as it's a vendor, is Bright Edge. That's one of the tools that we use to understand where our keywords are ranking. And SEO, just so you know, it's an investment. It's not something like paid search or anything else. It's an investment, and it takes time. I equate it to like a snowball going down a hill. You've got to do the things right at the beginning, and I've seen it in our metrics where you just see this growth. All of a sudden, nothing on page 1, everything was on page 3. Now it's moved to page 2. Now it's moved to page 1. Guess what? It took about 10 months for that to happen. But again, it's an investment that you need to do, and if it's not a one and done, I guess that's what I'm saying too. It's not a one and done with regards to SEO.
The best free tool out there is, somebody once told me, just don't hit enter. Go to Google, start typing in something, just don't hit enter, and it'll show you.
Yeah, there you go.
The auto suggest will show you what it expects you to search for, right? And when you're looking for those things, think about the context of what people are searching for, right? If you have a website that sells TVs, you probably shouldn't spend any of your time trying to rank for the phrase TVs, right? You want people that are in that buying phase. That's what you want to focus your time on. And when they're in that buying phase, they're comparison shopping models. They're looking for discounts or deals. They're looking for best model. So think about those kind of things. The very common mistake is people want to rank for these, restaurant in Los Angeles, or health insurance. I want to rank for.
Right.
That's great.
Yeah.
But think about what's really going to drive your business, and who are the customers you. It doesn't matter if you get 1 million people through the door if they're not adding any value, to you at the end of the day, whether it's, downloading your app, buying a product, then they're just sucking up your bandwidth, right? So you really want to go after the people that are really going to help drive your business.
Can we just jump right into blunders a little bit, because I think that I don't know. I know I want to hear some blunders.
Well,
Start at the end.
Go ahead.
So, generally, the biggest blunder of SEO, in my opinion, is laziness. When you start to get lazy and you don't want to put the hard work that's necessary to build your presence online, you're going to get nailed. So whether it's paid linking, whether it's focusing just on one keyword and not focusing more on thematics or keyword categories, it'll get you nailed, right? And it goes back to what we've all been talking about a little bit earlier, is losing that focus on the user. Anytime you start to lose that focus, you can really set yourself up for some major failure.
So if somebody here gets an email from an overseas company telling them that they can buy them a lot of links, should they do that for like $60 a month?
I mean,
Sure,
it depends how soon you're going to be leaving that company, right?
Yeah.
If you're going to be leaving in a few months, maybe it's a good idea. But if you're really in it for the long run, you're really trying to genuinely and honestly do what's right for your company and your business, you're not going to respond, right?
yeah, and I think that goes to what we've been talking about. It's really a term they call black hat versus white hat. If you're doing everything white hat, Google guidelines, Bing guidelines related, you're going to be fine when they have a Google algorithm change. You're going to be fine. But if you're doing a black hat stuff like the link farms and paying for links and stuff like that, that's what these last couple algorithm changes have really impacted people's sites about.
Yeah, I was going to hit on the laziness thing too, actually. And I've always explained SEO, especially when I talk to my mom and I'm trying to explain to her what I do. I say it's fitness for your website is what it is. And the analogy is so dead on, right? everyone knows how to be in shape, how to get a six-pack, how to do this, but not many people have it, right? And we still know. We see that infomercial at 2 a.m. Like, get this pill and take it, and you're gonna have a six-pack. And people still buy it. You know, that's the same thing with SEO. You're people looking for these shortcuts. That's such a blunder. It's so basic. It's not rocket science. You know, you have to do two things. You have to eat right and you have to work out. You can't just do one. If you do just do one, you might be okay. If you have a great site architecture and you're clean there, but you don't put any effort into your content and adding value and creating things that are worth people's time to come to your site, you're not going to do well. If you create great content, but you build your site in Flash, or you do something else to just shoot yourself in the foot, you're not going to do well either. And you have to, you know, as was mentioned up here, you have to keep doing it too. You know, you could work your ass off for 3 months and do all the great things, and the second you stop doing, you know, I was not blessed with that body type that can just I can run every day and get in great shape, and I stopped for 2 weeks and I put on 10 pounds, you know? And that's what's gonna happen with your website. So you have to keep going. You're not gonna see results in 3 weeks, right? You're gonna see results, I guarantee you will see results in time. But the second you stop doing it, the second you get lazy and think, all right, I'm ranking number one, I'm not gonna keep at it, you're gonna lose it. You know, it's not a one and done thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
What is the equivalent of eating right and exercising in SEO? I'm not sure I heard exactly.
Well, I would say eating right is the foundation, what you're putting into your body, right? So that would be having a clean site architecture, making sure search engines can crawl your site, making sure they understand the content that's on there. If you put an awesome video on your site, they can't read that video and understand what people are talking about, so put a transcript, right? Same thing with an infographic. You put a great infographic on there, they can't crawl the words in the image, and you know, you put all this work into it, right? Make it easy for them to understand. Make sure that your URL structure is fine. You're not creating dynamic URLs. You're not creating duplicate URLs. Most out-of-the-box things that you get, a lot of these things, if you don't set them up properly, you're going to create all these duplicate URLs, and all of a sudden you have, you know, the basic thing of having, not doing a redirect from yourdomain.com to www.yourdomain.com, right? And essentially that's like building 2 stores right next to each other and staffing them both and marketing them both and paying double electricity bills, right? So those are the basic things like eating. And then the fitness would be, hey, you gotta be creating infographics. You got to be creating videos. You know, you can't just go out, and you can't do the same thing. You can't just go out and run every day. You can, but the body's inherently lazy, right? So it'll start figuring that out, and you'll hit a plateau, and you won't get any better. Same thing with content. You can't just write articles every day. You can't just do videos. You have to mix it up, and you have to add, keep doing that.
And one of the basic things too is, and we're finding this with some of the websites we've released based on healthcare reform, having a site map. HTML and XML site map. I mean, that's you're telling the bots as they're coming through your site where to go, what pages not to see, what pages to see. I mean, that's just basic blocking and tackling. If
those words, sitemap, crawlability, canonicalization, 301s, if those are totally foreign to you and you have a website, pay someone who knows what they're doing to help you from the get-go. Because I can't tell you how many times I've worked with people or friends who spent thousands of dollars on these beautiful sites. You might as well build the best restaurant in the world and put it in the middle of the desert.
No kitchen.
Exactly.
So let me just summarize some of the things, because everybody went really fast with some of the words. So sitemap is very important, right? You guys talked about having title tags and H1 tags, as them being very important.
Meta descriptions.
Meta descriptions. Also, I think you mentioned, Adam, a really big mistake that I've seen a lot is people having a www version of their domain and then one without a redirect, right? So I think that's a problem, right?
That's a huge problem.
Yeah, another thing that I'll just add real quick as we're talking more of the kind of the technical measurement piece that I haven't heard mentioned is monitoring what your page and domain authority is. Mm-hmm. So a tool that's used a lot is Moz.com. You go there, pretty affordable solution. You can very easily find out what other people think about your site, what search engines think about your site. It's kind of this this.
And they have
met-
a
it's
free
this-
extension, by the way,
Yeah.
in Chrome.
Oh, that's
And-
right.
and-
Thanks for
And they have a great, it's like beginner's guide to SEO PDF or something that's free. And if any of the stuff sounds foreign to you, read that. It's very well written. It's moz.com. They have a beginner's guide to SEO. I mean, it's just free. Download it, read it. That's a great place to start.
And they have a lot of certifications as well. PPC, SEO, you can become, you know, top guy in the block if you go through all their training.
Yeah, but that's a really good way to understand how you're doing. You know, I think we all get caught up in our own marketing activities. We launch pages, we launch websites, and we're like, this is the best website ever, right? And then it gets moving. You start looking at the page domain authority. You start monitoring analytics, and you find out people don't really think the same thing. So you need that kind of third-party validation to help understand some of that
Right.
stuff.
Yeah.
I want to actually go to QA because I see a lot of hands in the air. Let's start over here. Yeah.
Hi, Adam. You talked about searcher intent. You sort of touched on it in one of your comments, and I was curious about how you do research to understand what searcher intent you want to target. So if you're thinking of the buyer's journey, so to speak, and you want someone who's kind of in the last 100 yards, what research and tools do you use to sort of figure out what to target in that area, what keywords you should be looking
That's a really good question. You guys want to go
Well,
for
I
it?
think if they're already down at the almost at the conversion stage, then if you're like, we use the example of a TV, you should have that model number and your brand number. So Samsung DH504 or whatever it might be. You've got to get to that granularity. There might not be that many searches, but I bet you there's going to be a lot of conversions around that.
Do reviews help in that cycle, in that process?
Sure.
Go ahead,
I mean, reviews are great. I mean, first basic thing I would say, think about how you would search for stuff, and that's a great way to start because you're not going to be different from other users. But when we're in our own company, we tend to forget that and start for some reason forgetting how we search when we're not there. But yeah, reviews, those kind of things, especially anyone that's has an e-commerce type site. When you sell a product, Samsung XYZ, I guarantee you, if you're selling that product, your product description is piped in from some Samsung database, and 10 million other websites that sell that TV have the exact same content on that page. So what's going to differentiate you? You got to get things like reviews on there. Do a product review video. One company I was at, we struggled to outrank Amazon, right? They're just a juggernaut in that thing. But we did video reviews on our top, 60 products out of a catalog of 3,000. And just from doing those video reviews, our search traffic shot up 40%. And we still didn't outrank Amazon, but we were number 2 and had this big video box on the search results. So yeah, they may be number 1, but we're taking up this much real estate, they're taking up that much.
Yeah. And
That didn't really answer your question. That was a tangent. Sorry about that.
But in answering intent, obviously that's the biggest question. I think I don't necessarily emphasize the tools. It's just like figuring out what you need to get, what type of data source. So like I mentioned before, usually figuring out the recency, the location, obviously their interests, and then the social contacts. So like location, if literally looking maybe Google Insights. Trying to figure out the location and trending of that particular key term could give you a lot of insight what the intent behind that key term was. Looking maybe social listening tools. There's Radiant 6. There's so many different tools. It doesn't really matter what tool it is. It's just how you get the information. So, listening for social conversation around that term could give you more context behind their intent. So, even looking at how Google tries to figure out their intent. Obviously, they emphasize their mobile products a lot more because it gives them that location data. And then, obviously, they're using Google Plus because it can give them the social contacts behind that interest. So if you're able to go backwards, even within your organization, and figure out what we need in order to get to that term, then you obviously could just look at for the tools elsewhere.
Keyword planner is a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one and that will show you put in the basic thing and it'll show you all these variations of what people search. And then there's also a competition kind of gauge on it. And you'll see like TV doesn't have that much competition because people are smart that are spending their money on these clicks. They're not going to spend money on things that don't convert. So you'll see like the more specific, the higher buying intent words, the competition will go up a little bit more. And so that's a good gauge to start at.
I use also just SEM Rush. I think is a pretty good tool for
that's a good one.
looking at your competitors. Let's do another question.
Mine is more about the sexiness of SEO, or the flip side. So SEO's been around for a while.
It's very sexy.
These guys, of course, are. But then you've got social media then also in your ecosystem. How do you deal with the politics in your organizations? Well, how to influence and bring social media workers within your teams, understanding how to work with SEO, but also looking at if it takes 8 months sometimes to get the dial to move versus, oh, cool, look at all these Twitter followers. So how are you dealing with that as an internal communication?
Our organization has, over the last couple of years, is trying to be more integrated. So we're now looking SEO enterprise level. We've been, the last year or so, been just doing line of business. So now we're thinking, what can we do to lift everybody up? So we're having those conversations. We're being more integrated. We're having planning sessions with everybody in the room, PR, IT, all those folks, because SEO, if you look at some of the research out there, there's so many different skills that are required in order to actually make it a success. You got the developers, you got the content writers, et cetera. So from our perspective, you've got to be closer and integrated more. So that's my charge right now, is to be closely and more integrated with the PR team, with the social media team.
You definitely need to integrate. You need to educate. That was a huge push for us this year of educating the entire company from the top down of, one, how important social is. SEO, I've always seen that as a part of it. You know, I consider blog, comments, anywhere, forums, all that kind of stuff is considered social. But when you talk about the normal things like profiles and Twitter and Facebook and all that stuff, they are integrated, you know, because it's essentially that the search engines haven't figured it out yet. The social signals are not that big a part, but they will be, right? And you think about it, like links have always ruled the world at the end of the day. But, you know, then a bunch of, you know, guys eating pizza, living in their parents' basement that were webmasters of a site, were dictating what were the best sites on the web. And now social gives everybody a vote, right? And Andrew touched on it, you know, Google Plus, like that's a big part of it. And authorship, don't be, like that's not Google's attempt to overtake Facebook. That's an identity platform, right? They're trying to figure out who's sharing what. If somebody shares something, what's the value of that person? How authoritative is that person sharing it? How authoritative is the person writing it? And make sure it's real people. A huge mistake that I see companies making is, you know, so my wife works in entertainment, and it kills me. Like these big companies, like, you know, if anybody here is from ABC, don't take this the wrong way, but I think this is a huge, huge mistake. You know, they have these hosts who have these huge following, and they make them use these Twitter handles that are, you know, John Doe at John Doe ABC, right? And because the company is kind of greedy and they want to keep all that, and then if that host leaves, then like we keep all that. You're not just going to transfer that to somebody else, right? That's not an entity you own. That's that person, and you want authoritative people. I want somebody that writes for my site to go and write some kick-ass, amazing viral piece on, you know, menshealth.com. Even though that's a competitor, because every time they do something with their real identity, that's a hit, that ups the value of every single thing they've written for our site, right? So educating your company onto that kind of stuff is huge, because I feel like the bigger the company, the greedier they get with those kind of things. They want to hold on to everything, but social, you can't control all of it, right? And it is about those. You have your brand handles for sure, but it is about that personal identity, and you need to build that, and you gotta make sure that that's understood.
Andrew,
Yeah,
go ahead.
That's great. Yeah, one thing I was going to add to of kind of the convergence of social and search and how to approach that. One thing that we've done that's been successful is, you know, I would argue that search is a little bit farther ahead in maturity as a niche industry than social is, right? So one way we've kind of teamed up is I've kind of presented it or positioned it as, hey, I've been there in that stage. So I don't know if you guys would agree with me, but some of the party is over for search in a way, right? Like used to be, and these guys were talking about it, you could do just a handful of things, and you were performing pretty dang well in the search engines. Those days are over, right? But social is a little bit they're earlier in that maturity, right? Like, it's not quite, this is an extreme, but, just within the last couple of years, it's like, hey, I've got a Twitter feed. You're doing well, right? They're going to get to a point where just existing isn't going to do anything for them, right? So that's one way we've positioned it too, is said, hey, I can provide you that knowledge farther along in the maturity cycle to help you progress.
Yeah. We have another question over here. Yep.
So with the expansion of Google's knowledge graph, they know it's been doing like a lot of shady stuff lately to keep you on their search engine, right? They hide the source in a gray, not underlined link that it doesn't even look like a link, it looks like a citation. And everything that's clickable, whether it's the person's picture or like the entity's picture, everything that's blue and underlined, these are just more Google searches. And most of us rely on getting people to our website. We need them to convert. We need to add impressions. So what can we do as SEOs to protect our industry? Really? Because we need them to get to our website.
Great question. Who wants to jump on that?
I might not say that's super shady. I think, when you think about most of the stuff that they're answering in a knowledge graph is stuff that it's literally a question that can be answered in how many movies was Leonardo DiCaprio in? 38, right? From a user standpoint, I don't need to go to a site to see that. If that's the answer I want, like, what's the temperature today in New York? Like, I don't want to have to go to a website. Just give me it now, right? So my counter argument to you would be, you should be providing things that are more valuable than can be answered in 2 seconds like that on a page.
Yeah, that's great. I almost think of it kind of like a patent, right? So when you file a patent, get it approved, there's only a certain amount of time that you have to get your act together and start capitalizing on that patent, right? Once you go past that, then it's free game for everybody. In some ways, that's kind of what the knowledge graph is they're presenting information that's so commonly accepted across industries and knowledge bases that they're gonna probably de-emphasize the owner a little bit and just try to get that information to users faster and more efficiently.
I think
That's a good
just
point.
embracing it. I think most organizations are able to embrace it just because, with a knowledge graph, it's inherent to what digital is. It's just a discovery mode or this platform, just discover and obviously engage with content. And I think, again, going back and being able to tell your same story that you're telling on the website through other content formats so if you search on, best autos or whatever, if you're able to feed in your videos, your image, and your editorial, literally that search results page should be able to tell a story, the same exact story with the same tone as you have in your website. So I think it just makes you embrace what digital is, and it's just about information, and information can be consumed through other means other than pages and websites. So I think it's actually a positive thing that I think most organizations should embrace.
Well, guys, go ahead, Andy. Last question.
We use Keyword Planner with great success, and the question is, what tool or tools do you guys use to listen to social out there, to pick key phrases that people are buzzing on? Are there any tools that I've seen a few out there that you can put in like P90X or something like that, and then it listens to social?
Google Trends is a good one. In terms of people in social talking about other things, Raven Tools has a pretty good social integration where you can search for people with a certain amount of followers that are talking about whatever.
I don't know if I should just suggest this or not because it's not really affordable, but we use Radian 6, which can be very expensive. It's a Salesforce tool, but there's one of the features of Radian 6 is I think what they call like conversation rivers or conversation paths, where it's trying to categorize and bucket different conversations that have correlations, and then you start to pick up on some of those themes, some of those keyword thematics that come up out of those rivers.
All right, guys. I think we're just about out of time, but I want to give a big round of applause for our expert panelists here.
All right, we're going to take a quick group photo. We've got 2 minutes. If you need to go to the restroom, you want to grab a water, we're going to take a quick break, and we're starting real